You're listening to The Luxury Item, the podcast on the business of luxury and the people and companies that are shaping the future of the luxury industry. Here's your host, Scott Kerr.
There's something in the air, and that something is the smell of a booming fragrance industry. Spending time inside and practicing social distancing means we're interacting with products much different than we ever did before. And while you might think something as specific as fragrance would lose its power during a time when people are going out less and staying in more, the opposite has proven to be true. The U.S. prestige beauty industry generated $22 billion in 2021, a 30% increase in dollar sales versus 2020, according to the NPD Group. The fragrance category registered double-digit growth against both 2020 and 2019 as consumers look to treat themselves. The fourth quarter accounted for 45% of fragrance category sales revenue in 2021, growing by 35% during the critical holiday selling season. My guest on The Luxury Item is an accomplished luxury and consumer goods executive who's helping to map out the future of prestige beauty. Laura Azaria is General Manager of Couture brands at L'Oreal. Laura is part of the L'Oreal Luxe division and oversees designer portfolios like Prada, Valentino, Mugler, and Viktor and Rolf. With more than 20 years of experience across product strategy operations across all beauty categories, Laura Azaria has led several successful launches with innovative ways to disrupt the market and is known for pushing boundaries of the new marketing reality in digital with strong customer and data focus. Welcome to The Luxury Item, Laura.
Hi, Scott. How are you?
Thank you for joining me today. Prestige beauty really had its moment in 2021. Sales jumped as people were re-entering society. I guess you could say, they're putting their best face forward. Prestige fragrances in particular emerged as the brightest star with unprecedented growth. Were you seeing a similar surge with L'Oreal's designer fragrances?
Oh, absolutely, Scott. It's been, 2021 has been quite of an interesting year, for, many reasons. And while I think everybody was still going through COVID and everything, the consumer gravitated towards different experience and fragrance was part of it. It's been a year of amazing growth for the entire fragrance category and market share gains for all the brands, including our portfolio on L'Oreal. It's been phenomenal for both women and men, by the way.
Did you see by any chance that consumers were gravitating specifically to designers or celebrities during COVID, their specific fragrances?
It was really across the board. There was definitely a willingness to go a little bit more sophisticated, elevated, but I would say like fragrance in general has been experiencing that growth and on different formats. I think fragrance, but included also we've seen on candles, other categories as such that created that moment of self-care and self-indulgence. I think that was definitely part of the consumer behavior, experience, desire that we observed.
So can you talk a little bit about L'Oreal's Couture brands and what you do in your role as general manager?
Sure. So I'm the general manager for some L'Oreal fragrances. So we have a few. So I'm in charge of 4 brands and in charge of the Viktor and Rolf brand, Valentino, Mugler, and Prada. So I have an amazing team. I just want to acknowledge them because it's an amazing team of true industry experts, and they're passionate about growing our portfolio of brands. As I said before, it's been a year of personal challenges for many people around COVID, but at the same time, it's been an amazing year from a growth standpoint in business. In terms of the portfolio, it's an interesting portfolio of brands. So Viktor and Rolf is the iconic brand that we've had in our portfolio as a license for many years, and with the iconic Flower Bomb, which is a top 10 in women's, and keeps on growing. We're really a portfolio of acquisition brands for L'Oreal. So Valentino was integrated that in 2019. And since then, we'll talk about it. It's been an exponential growth and very, very exciting. Mugler was the other acquisition that took place in my portfolio. It was also with Azaria, but in my portfolio, I have Mugler that was acquired and integrated in 2020. And then the final latest kid on the block is on our portfolio is Prada, and that was integrated back last year. And it's interesting, and actually our CEO always refer to how do we grow, nurture brand into big brands. So it's really my role as a GM to grow, nurture these beautiful brands to they are global brands, and then how do we connect with the US consumers, continue to build these brands, yet taking into account the fact that it's a portfolio of what we call couture brands. So it's really the name of our portfolio. We call ourselves the couture brands because we have the fashion houses and they represent fashion. So we work hand in hand with our global partners to make sure that whatever we do on our fragrance brand is very complementary, in line with the image of the fashion houses, which are super, super powerful as brands.
I'm assuming that you're looking to grow that portfolio as well.
We'll see. We're definitely growing this one. We're taking care of the existing children, and then we'll see after.
And you officially launched Valentino Beauty in the US in July of last year. What was the launch strategy for Valentino Beauty?
So, just first, like taking a little bit of a step back, as I said, Valentino brand was integrated in 2019, and actually I should mention, because we're very proud of that and the results, but it was really tiny when and very with a very small distribution when we integrated the license back in 2019, and now we're like Valentino fragrance is a top 15 in just 3 years. So it's been phenomenal to see the reaction, the consumer appetite for a brand like that, which is very, very elevated, and the brand fitted perfectly the L'Oréal portfolio for what we need to do. It's a very unique personality, has this happiness as well, as a brand, and so we launched with the Valentino Born in Roma fragrance, and then last year the Voce Viva, and then Beauty was launched in June last year. It was just very natural, when you think about Valentino as a brand. There's something very colorful if you think about the fashion runway with Pier Paolo, bringing to life this clash of colors and inclusivity. So we launched Beauty last year with quite a wide range of SKUs across face, foundation, lip, and very, very inclusive in terms of the look and feel, the range that we selected, the models and the visuals that we brought to life.
You started the launch on the Valentino Beauty website, right? You really didn't get into the stores like Neiman Marcus and Nordstrom until afterwards.
Absolutely. For us, it was super important to create that moment, which was very Valentino, a moment where we launched our own D2C with the couture makeup positioning and launch at the same time. So we did that for a couple of months. We wanted to create that moment, and then we quickly rolled out into the rest. I mean, into some distribution, very curated distribution. So we launched at Nordstrom, and then Neiman Marcus, and then in December we launched at Sephora, and now we're rolling out at Sephora as we speak in some doors.
What was the brand narrative that you wanted to communicate to consumers when Valentino Beauty launched?
So the positioning of the campaign is couture makeup begins with you. So that was really the way to express and celebrate each and every consumer, and we actually launched with 16 different brand ambassadors across all diversity. And for us, Valentino Beauty is the what we like to say the couture excellence for all, and it's all genders, all skin tone. It celebrates all personal styles. I'm sure you've had the chance to see the beautiful, honestly, the beautiful campaign.
I did.
And we like the positioning of color cool couture, and ties in with fashion. I hope you felt that, because it's color, but it's also fashion. It's high fashion. It's high touch. There is also in it the refillable packaging.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So we launched with a refillable packaging, so we could introduce this range in a sustainable way. And so you can buy your lipstick, you can refill it with different shades, so you can really have your lip wardrobe portfolio without excess packaging. And one of the hero SKU that really ties in with the fashion, so is the Go Clutch, what we call the Go Clutch, which was an accessory that existed within the Valentino fashion, that was
Mm-hmm.
then adapted to the makeup line, so you can wear it as a crossbody. So it's really our way to express the fashion and the color and the makeup together.
So model Adut Akesh and Lady Gaga were tapped to be the faces of the beauty brand and fragrances upon its launch. What values do these two brand ambassadors embody that speak to the Valentino Beauty brand?
No, it's an excellent question. And actually, Adut has been part of the Valentino fashion
Right.
before she was chosen as the first spokesperson, actually, for the fragrance launch of Born in Roma. So she's been one of the muse of Pier Paolo. And so both Adut and Lady Gaga, actually, they are like strong, powerful women. Their story is quite incredible. The story of Adut as a refugee to the success that she is experiencing now. Lady Gaga, her past and the values that she embodies from a inclusivity standpoint. So they really represent everything that Valentino wants to embody and is. So they're glamorous, they're fun, they like to play with their beauty looks, but they also have this inner power, and they celebrate everyone's individuality every single day, and they capture that spirit. So in a very effortless, a very organic, authentic way for us, and we love them.
And consumers buy into the products by seeking deeper connections rooted in the identity and heritage behind the brand. How does Valentino Beauty lean into decades of its brand heritage and the culture of couture for its fragrances?
Yeah, both fragrances and makeup, by the way. So on fragrances, I'll start with the fragrances, where the bottle of Born in Roma has these glass studs, which is super recognizable for Valentino. It's the signature of Valentino. And actually, the stud, just to share like a little bit of an anecdote, but the stud comes from the Roman architecture, where in Rome, when you're in Rome, you have a lot of like buildings that has these like studs in stone. So that was the inspiration. And then from the stones in Roma to the stud in stone in Roma to the bottle in glass, you have that both on the Born in Roma, but also on the Voce Viva with the Valentino red, the stud. So that's for the fragrance. So it's super important to have that. Even it comes on the bottle, but it also actually comes on the carton. So the carton of Born in Roma has this debossed, I'm going to use like some technical word, but debossed stud. So you can feel Valentino when you buy the product. And then when it comes to beauty, that was the V logo, which is also another signature from fashion, the gold V logo that is a signature with the gold that's remnant of the hardware that you find on the accessories, the handbags and the shoes, along with the studs. So all of that was inspired by fashion. And I mentioned the happiness, but it's also the brightness, the light, which is really what you feel when you're in Rome. And so that's the whole story that is put together behind these products. So it's the rock stud, it's the V logo, and it's all tying like the fashion, the fragrance, and the makeup together.
Like many industries, the COVID-19 crisis was a wake-up call for the beauty business. Store closures and their sluggish reopening contributed to a big decline in overall US sales. But a category like fragrances, which was once thought to be impossible to sell online, posted monumental digital sales growth. How did your brands ramp up their digital offerings during the crisis?
It's an excellent question, Scott. And actually, selling fragrance on digital was, to your point, a question that we had even before COVID. Like, how do you smell something through a computer? Like, how do you just have that sensor? It's not like makeup where you have the
Right.
instant payoff and instant gratification, or hair. And I think like every challenge in life, when you're facing a challenge, you have to overcome it. And I mean, that's what we do. That's what we do at L'Oreal. And but you have to be creative and resourceful. So we worked very much hand in hand with our global brand partners with the brief of, let's create content that smells, so we can connect with the consumers. And we tested, we learned, and we tried. And I think if you were to go and look on the Valentino product page on any of our retailers, partners, or our own D2C, there was a very much of effort, intention into the mix, so ingredients that people can relate to, so they could trigger some sort of olfactory sense and feel, and smell what the fragrance could be via images. So we really push ourselves on that.
It's interesting. Someone asked me the other day, how are you going to sell fragrances in the metaverse?
That's the $1 million question. And I know there are like $1 million spent on buying real estate on the metaverse. But I think at the end of the day, it's we'll figure it out. And on the metaverse, on Valentino, more on makeup, we partners with some designers, creators, that actually took the inspiration of the packaging of makeup to create some NFT. So it's interesting to see how the beauty will be actually going into that. I think the consumer is going to go, and how fast is it going to go? I think that's the key question right now.
Yeah. And did consumers turn to brands they knew, or were they open to discovering new brands during COVID? So what did you find out about the consumer that you thought perhaps was interesting?
I think, what's interesting is I think it was a little bit of a mix. I think at the very beginning, we saw that consumers wanted to go back to something that they knew. So we saw that, but even the brands that they knew, we had to evolve. And, going back to your comment on the content, how do you sell, fragrance? We, for example, on a brand like Flower Bomb, we created like in real life content with some influencers. We partnered with Miss Fame, so they could talk about the fragrance in a real way, a relatable way, even for a brand that has been around for a long time. And so that's for like the existing brands. I think existing brands, existing iconic, I think there was a reassurance. I do think though that the consumer was, and that's why we saw growth in the category, the consumer wanted to experience something different. And I think one observation that we believe happened is the fact that in a world that people could not escape, right? Because you're in a lockdown. What do? You're at home. Fragrance came around as being something that created an escape, created like a moment to self-discover new senses. So a way to travel, which is what's inherent to fragrance, and we know that in Europe the fragrance category is much bigger than the size of the fragrance category in the US. So we do believe that the consumers was willing to explore and started to be interested in the fragrance category, where perhaps before they didn't pay attention to it or didn't feel connected with it.
And so when the lockdowns eased and consumers were coming out, were you finding that they were turning to fragrances that were different because they wanted to feel like themselves again or needed to feel new again?
What we saw is we saw some trend of going towards more intense fragrance. And so that was something new as well, where, again, from a behavior standpoint in the US, there was perhaps a little bit more of a fragrance that you don't want to be too much overpowering in your face. And I think with lately the consumer is like feeling more comfortable and finding different occasions to wear fragrance.
Making a statement, you think?
Yeah, I think there is a statement. I mean, fragrance typically we know was something for a special occasion to go outside of your home. But now we also see occasions inside of the home. Working from home, you still like get ready and you want to have that moment for yourself. So that's something that we saw, as I said at the beginning, also the boom in candles. And it's part of this self-indulgence, self-discovery. And in addition, I would say the shift could be associated as well to the explosion of social media. Mm-hmm. And more and more organic content has been made for the category in fragrance to be much more approachable, to attract new younger consumers, discover that category that has been perhaps a little bit of a smaller category versus the rest of the world.
Yeah. Do you think that beauty shoppers got smarter about fragrances during the pandemic?
I think so. I think the consumer,
like, did they knew the ingredients and the notes? Were they more into that than they were before?
They're craving it. I think they are definitely the consumer. He's very smart. They're very demanding. So that's why we test the content to make sure we continue to optimize the needs. But there is definitely a craving for this authentic content, to understand what it smells like, and when it comes to the notes, you see more and more sophisticated content, but yet simple and approachable, so the consumer can understand it.
Did you see a increased attention to clean beauty as well?
Not it's there. I don't know if it's the most I don't know if it's the biggest ask from that category, but to be defined.
So L'Oreal has amassed a sizable e-commerce business over the years, spanning branded stores, affiliates, social networks, and marketplaces, and now TikTok. Some L'Oreal brands have already tested shoppable live streams and rolled out shoppable storefronts on TikTok to engage with Gen Z. How are L'Oreal's Couture fragrance brands approaching TikTok?
Definitely part of the go-to-market, Scott. We've done it on fragrance. It's we partner with creators. We have both organic content, boosted content, and it's a very important platform. And in terms of your question for live stream, it's something that we played as we going back on the beauty. It was super important. So that's why when we launched with the D2C, we did live streaming, shopping, and we know the consumer is more and more engaged. As I mentioned before, it's this craving of having very approachable, relatable, personable content, and TikTok is perfect for that. But I think live streaming is also perfect for that, because you can have that engagement and then instant gratification. We did something with Raul, with our global our global makeup artists to have that moment on beauty. And we know it's a big trend in Asia, and we believe it'll continue to grow in the US.
So you see social commerce and live streaming playing a bigger role in engaging with consumers?
Absolutely.
Beauty lends itself well to virtual experiences thanks to the inherent experimentation and sense of play in cosmetics. And virtual try-on technology is rapidly becoming table stakes for beauty brands. But when it comes to the metaverse, beauty brands are taking these baby steps. Where do you see the metaverse opportunity for fragrances and cosmetics and beauty in general?
No, it's super interesting, Scott, and for sure when it comes to the metaverse, virtual try-on for beauty, as you mentioned, it's super important. And TikTok, it's super important to connect with the consumer. It's part of the consumer journey. That's the way consumers are, want to explore and connect with our products, connect with our brands. And at the same time, and we're taking steps there, and or not even steps, we're there. At the same time, for us, what's super important when it comes to the luxury beauty, and for brands like Valentino, Prada, for Victor and Well, for Mugler, all these brands that are part of the luxury beauty, we need to also strike the balance between the offline and online. So as much as we are absolutely going into the digital, we also want to have that consumer journey that it's very complete with the offline and online connection. Because at the end of the day, it's a high touch business, it's a service business, and it's part of the consumer journey, and it's more and more complex, but at the same time, it's more and more fascinating, and it's more and many more ways to express our brands and connect with our consumers.
Consumers are becoming more open to purchasing fragrances exclusively online. And aside from overall purchase behavior moving toward digital channels due to the pandemic, there's also been a push of these new DTC fragrance brands such as Sniff and Skylar and Scentbird, and they're using new sampling innovations. Are you seeing increased competition from these DTC fragrance startups?
I don't think it's a competition. I think it's complementary. We're looking at we've seen these brands, and I think it's another way to continue to attract and grow the fragrance category as a whole. But it's a very different market, very different positioning than the couture elevated brands that we have. But I think it's super interesting and complementary to. We need to grow that fragrance category, so there is room for everyone.
So it's a new year, riding on the crest of a very successful wave of sales last year. So what do you see as the big prestige beauty themes for 2022?
I think 2022 is a bit what I was saying before on the omni experience, the online and offline connection, the new way of living. We see the makeup market rebounding. We continue to see the growth in fragrance, which is exciting, and more and more opportunity to grow and recruit more into the category. As mentioned before, when you look at the size of the fragrance category in Europe versus in the US, it's full of opportunities. And I do believe the consumer will continue to discover new senses and want to experience new things. The world continues to be complicated, and I think beauty is this escape, both on beauty, makeup, and fragrance. It's an escape. It's a way to really connect back to your inner sense.
Any new product launches or programs you can talk about?
We have a
or
lot.
Tease?
We have a lot, and maybe we can schedule another one in fall on a different brand. I know we talk more about Valentino, but we'd be more than happy to share more as we go into fall. But we have a lot of innovation, big launches in also in the making. But yeah, I can only tease. But it's a very exciting year ahead of us for both fragrances and makeup.
So Laura, my final question, which is the luxury item question, which I ask all my guests. If you were stranded on a deserted island and you can only have one luxury item with you, what luxury item would that be? It can't be any form of air transportation, water transportation, or anything that requires mobile service. It's just you on this deserted island with sand, a bunch of palm trees, surrounded completely by miles and miles of ocean. What would that one luxury item you would like to have with you?
First of all, you make me dream right now. Listen, it's always hard to choose one, especially I'm managing a portfolio of 4 brands. No, and I'm sure you might be expecting perhaps like something around fragrance or makeup, but I have to say when I hear island and the sun and everything, I also think skincare. So I would give a little bit of a wink to one of our sister brand in L'Oreal with Lancôme Absolute Skincare, for sure for me to bring. And although not super practical, I would bring my Valentino shoes.
Laura, I love that you're on brand, no matter what the situation is.
Exactly.
So I love that. Laura Azaria, General Manager of Couture Brands at L'Oreal USA. Thank you so much for joining me on The Luxury Item.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Scott. That was amazing.
That's it for this episode of the Luxury Item Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you found this useful and entertaining, I would be really grateful if you can share it with a friend or colleague. I would love it if you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It really helps other listeners find us. The Luxury Item Podcast is a production of Silvertone Consulting. I'm your host, Scott Kerr. Until next time.